Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to Technically Managing episode 14.
Episode 14. It's
I
been
got
so
it.
long.
This is a podcast where we're technically managing in our jobs as product managers and also technically managing at life. I'm Zachary Telke.
And I'm Ramu Kami.
That's probably about as official as will be this whole conversation.
Exactly.
I I always feel weird doing the official thing, but
Yeah,
who am
it's
I?
officially unofficial. It's technically official, let's say.
Yeah. Okay, so we moved these to now. We used to be doing these every 2 weeks, and now this is our first one doing it every month.
Hmm.
I'm curious how we like it. Like, I found, what was your thoughts preparing for this? Because I did find that I was a little bit more like,
Relaxed or
yeah, relaxed, or I'm like, okay, I have more topics I can talk about,
hmm.
especially because I've been like working a lot the past month leading up to Cloud World. So it's
Hmm.
like, what's been new? It's like, well, I've been focusing on this one thing for like 40 hours and this other thing for 40 hours. And like, that's about it. Like, having
Yeah.
a whole month, I feel like will give us some more material, at least for now. Maybe we'll change at some point, but that's kind of like, I think it'll be good just to give us a bit more breathing room without feeling pressure.
I think something that I want to do is since it's a month, there's a lot to cover, but at the same time, if you ask me right now what I've been working on, I forget. I only know what I've been working on right now? So I think I'm going to start making a list of things that I'm working like while I'm working on that I'm like, oh, I'm struggling with this, or oh, this is my thought about this. I'm gonna have a technically managing section in my one notebook so that I can start writing things down. But it's been a very long month, to be honest. So I think it was a good idea because we will definitely deliver better topics, for future podcasts. And it gives us more time to definitely give better quality for sure.
I feel like a lot of it isn't even like we didn't have things to talk about. I just
We
feel like
always have
having
to
another
talk
thing on
about.
our plate was just like slowly driving us to, it
Yeah.
wasn't like this specifically, but it's just like the mountain of a thousand pebbles.
Yep.
No, but yeah, I've been like keeping notes in my note app on my phone, and I've been kind of like spreading them out a bit more. So if you're like starting doing that, I found that to be helpful.
Yep.
But I know I refuse to. I feel like, do you like getting the topics beforehand? Because I don't. I like did not give you my notes this morning, and I'm just like, I don't want to have to explain how
Yeah.
my brain works unfiltered. Like, this is going to be a little bit cryptic and whatever.
So how's life been? I feel like I haven't spoken to you in so long.
I know we've both been like pretty heads down. It's been like I've been working my butt off, and like I can get into this. I feel like I'm in the eye of like the storm right now.
Great.
Uh where like the 2 weeks before this were like insane. But I like this morning, the beginning of my week was pretty busy. I woke up, like I finished my day at 5, and I'm like, okay, just like relaxed. Woke up at about like 5:36, went to the gym, like feel very loose, like got the laundry going. I'm just like in a good organized spot. So I was like pretty tired yesterday, but very calm at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes like that's making me feel good. Like I feel like I'm finally starting to get under control in like
Mm-hmm.
both personal and work. And I think like I just need to focus on being in that space leading up to Cloud World in 3 weeks. Cause just for people who are listening or watching, this will be out next Tuesday. It's currently Thursday, August 31st, so like the last day of the month. And
Mm-hmm.
Cloud World will be the 18th to the 21st of September. So that's right around the corner.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
like, what about you? Kind of what's your headspace? Because you won't be at Cloud World, but you've been like also working on a lot of stuff related to that. I'm guessing that's kind of been your main focus too.
Yeah, I think after dealing with all of the updating live labs and making sure that everything looks good and keeping up with all the deadlines, it's gotten better for me for sure because I get to focus on other things now. I'm not a presenter, so I get to look at other things that is better for me now because Cloud World was driving me a
The
little.
smile on your face saying that you don't have like for people who are just like listening, for me who just like looked out the window hopefully with a smile on her face that was like more genuine than one I've seen in so long. Where you're just like, that is other people's problems, and I could
I,
not be happier about that because
I
I'm about ready to pass on that baton.
no, because sometimes I do get a little tired of focusing on only one thing for a
Yeah.
very long time, and we prepare for Cloud World very early on. And still, we still feel like there's things that we have to catch up and actually work on until the day of Cloud World. So I know I'm going to get some other things probably to, fix or whatever. But it feels so good to kind of say, okay, I can cross this out of my list. And it's a huge thing, right? So
Mhm.
that now I can focus on other stuff that I enjoy or that at least is like newer to me, because I feel like I've been focusing in just one thing and it gets too repetitive. And part of product management is that you get to work on a lot of different things, right? So you're never bored. So yeah, it's being better for sure, right? Compared to the last time we spoke. I actually also started my little routine where I wake up early, I go to the gym. I wasn't doing that. And I think that is definitely part of why you get in a better mood.
Mhm.
I've also been trying to meditate a little bit, after my gym. I go outside and I, do some breathing exercises for like 5 minutes. I journal a little bit and then I start work. So that has helped me a lot mentally, to be honest, because sometimes you get overwhelmed and you stop caring about yourself that much, So it is important to even like think about, wow, I'm going to take some time to actually breathe,
Yeah.
because, and don't get me wrong, sometimes I'm like sitting with my eyes closed and I'm breathing and I'm like, oh, I need to do this at work. And I'm like, nope, nope, no, no. This is my time. And 5 minutes is a long time when you're not thinking about anything, but it's helped me so much, to be honest. So if you don't do breathing exercises, I would definitely recommend you to do that because it's important.
I'm glad you're saying this too, because like Montana and I have these conversations where
Mm-hmm.
we're just like, are we like losing our mind that like we have to remind ourselves sometimes to breathe? But I
Yep.
think that's just like an adult thing with responsibilities where it's like, hey
Mm-hmm.
kids, like out there, if you're listening to this and you're like high school or college, like one of the best skills that you'll learn that you're like you don't have to worry about now is like when you get older, just like, oh yeah, I have to breathe in between like all the
Yep.
chaos of stuff, especially if you have like a pretty like high pressure job.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And it helps you with stress management for sure. Like I've felt the change in the 2 weeks that I've been doing this. So that doesn't mean that I still don't get stressed out at work sometimes when something is not working or I don't know, I have a roadblock or something. But at the end of the day, like you also have to learn how to disconnect, whenever you're done with work, you're done with work and that's it. Even though Zach has caught me looking at my computer at 9:30 p.m. because I'm checking something really quick.
Oh, you were checking something quick. I was still online. Like,
Right.
don't
I was
go
just
acting
checking
like I'm
something.
the one like calling you out and you're secretly like I'm like secretly being way worse about it.
Yeah, you were pretty bad even during your time off. So
I know.
yeah.
I need to talk about the webinar I did last week because that's like a
Mhm.
funny story. But no, just like you mentioning all the I guess you'd call it the physical aspect of like the mind, body, spirit type
Mhm.
thing. I get frustrated by how much you can't like those are very much like different domains where with my brain I like to find the most efficient thing, and the thing with like taking care of yourself physically is you can't like clever your way into taking care of that need. You just have to do it.
Mhm.
And like something that just reminded me of that. It's like just it's been very high pressure, high stress, a lot of good stuff going on, and I've been like extremely excited. So it's been a bit like an emotional roller coaster.
Mhm.
But I finally finished packing, like unpacking the apartment last
Wow.
weekend, and just like looking at my office and not having there be clutter. I'm just like I my resting stress level
Yep.
is so much lower. And like I knew I needed to do this. So it's not even like this was like some big mental surprise. It's just
It feels
only
good.
so many hours in a day, but and it was like one of those things where it's like I have certain priorities and I can't drop the ball on certain things. So it's like
Hmm.
I wish I could spend 4 hours today just finishing this off. I can't. So it's like it is what it is. But once like you finally get it done, you're just like, yeah, that was about as good as I thought it would be. Like that was
Yeah.
very much needed.
Yeah. There's some things that you don't have control over, and it's okay. And you just have to let it go sometimes because I feel like we're very critical people of ourselves, you know?
Mhm.
We are always like, we need to be productive. We need to be gaining something out of whatever we spend our time on. And sometimes you just don't do that. And it's okay because it's time for yourself, you know? So, yeah, spiritual journey towards being more healthy, towards ourselves, more kind, you know. So I'm glad that you're doing good though, and I can tell that you're doing better, you know. And the movie situation overall is stressful anyways,
Mhm.
but at least you're over all that stuff.
I also feel like I've been it's weird. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. I
Mhm.
feel like since us starting to do public things and putting more of ourselves out there publicly,
Mhm.
there's almost this pull to be consistent
Mhm.
where you're like, oh, because like everyone like talks about brand and all that stuff. And it's like at a certain level, I can't be the most unhinged version of myself publicly,
Mhm.
like that I am like privately, just silly wise, but none of us can. Like there's a level of professionalism like we have just when we interact with society. But I
Yeah.
also feel like we don't have to be as, and I think this is just part of doing stuff like this. Like we're kind of learning the lessons as we go along. But I
Mhm.
also feel like you don't have to be so like in the box
Yep.
as you initially think you have to be.
A
And
hundred
the
percent.
kind and like the, yeah, and like the kind of get at where this is like coming from. Like I'll take my webinar as an example that I just did. I did a webinar on SQL CL. It was like a SQL CL 101. It's basically like a draft version of my Cloud World presentation. And I've just had so many different things, like a bunch of different directions I've needed to focus on, like all very important deadlines. And getting ready for this webinar, I was like working around the clock right up until like the day of the webinar. Like I think I don't know if I should nah, it's like it's not bad I'm saying this because it went well. And this
Mhm.
isn't how I normally behave. It's just kind of like sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yep.
It was 2.5 hours before the actual webinar presentation that my slide deck was finally like finalized.
Oh, I think you told me that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I only had those like 2.5 hours to, I mean, I was like practicing along the way by building it, but that was like the only time I had to just focus in on getting the reps in, saying it out loud, like start to finish
Hmm.
myself. And that was probably the most like
Yep.
under pressure I've been since some moments in college.
Yep.
And on one hand, I'm like, that was like, let's not, that was a little too close for comfort. Like, let's not do that again anytime soon.
Hmm.
But then there was a level of just after I finally like unplugged, got away from everything afterwards, there was just this level of calm. And it kind of reminded myself, I'm like, I do have a bit of a masochistic side where I'm uncomfortable if I'm doing things that like let's just say aren't that big of hurdles that like everyone can do. But when
Hmm.
I'm doing something that's like essentially of kin of like diving into the deep end and swimming like all the way to the other side of the lake and like not that many people like are able to do things under like those kinds of constraints,
Hmm.
that's kind of what like gets me off a little bit where like I like that. It's like I like doing hard
Finally.
things and it sucks leading up to it, but I think one, like, just because we talk about what we do and we're trying to be as like honest as possible about like what goes into our jobs and just advancing your careers in your 20s. I feel like if I were to say try to just present it as like, oh, there's just like the public stable version of Zach, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's like the private like human where it's like we have emotions, we go ups and like we have our ups and downs. That
Right.
would be like an inauthentic picture, because I kind of like pushing myself until I almost break, because I learn more about myself that way. And it's like, yeah,
Right.
it's not pretty when we get like right to like the breaking part, but like then you get away from it, and, like you're more resilient and all that. And it's like, yeah, I'm going through like whatever, like the 7 stages of grief, like the grief along the way of that journey. But and
You're
like
like,
there are
I
some
wish
like
I would have done
serious
this
like
earlier.
what?
You're like, I wish I would have done this earlier, but then at the same
Oh
time, you're
yeah.
like, whatever.
Yeah, you're like beating yourself up. You're like, why didn't we do this earlier? It's like we did this as early as we could. We had other stuff going on, you know that. And like
Yeah.
you're just like fighting with all the different versions of yourself. But I don't I don't know. I think I kind of, on reflection of that and just thinking about where I'm at in my career, what it means to like do what we do, and the fact that we are kind of positioning ourselves to get more comfortable in the professional setting, being public. I'm like, oh, I don't have to like I can be a human being. I don't have to like always be like everything's going great. And just we've even had podcast moments where on retrospect I get very, I'm trying to think of a right word, probably like some version of worried, like not worried, but
Mm-hmm.
it's something that concerns me. Just those moments of like, oh, is it a bad thing that we showed that like we're struggling this week? Like we don't want, like you don't want to like give the impression that like you're burnt out, or it's like
Mm-hmm.
it says this about this, like your situation or environment, people overreading things that aren't there. But it's
Right.
like, no, I feel like there's almost a bit of and I think the social media age like contributes to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget, it might have been Montana I was talking to about this, but like basically someone was like saying how they have to remind themselves that everyone's like lives isn't perfect, because so many people just default to like the everything's going great. So it feels like, oh, if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do something public, it has to be like the everything's like all
Right.
smiles and right and dandy. But I'm like, I feel like that's doing people a disservice who actually want to learn how to do things, because like
Mhm.
that's like one of the things that we have going for us. It's
Right.
not that we like know everything. It's like, hey, we're going on this journey, and the time that it is the easiest to communicate and share like what this journey is like, and we might not even fully understand what we're saying or going through, is in the moment. And I don't know, it's like I've always been inspired when people are like, oh no, this is going to suck and it's going to be hard, but
Yep.
like it's going to be worth it. So like I feel like being more comfortable just sharing those ups and downs, it it just leads to a more fuller picture. And like at the end of the day, it's like if I actually had a problem with the way that we worked and
Mm-hmm.
like what we did, it's like I've had this like I've had these conversations with like Jeff, my manager, like
Mm-hmm.
coworkers, friends, family, and stuff. I The reason why I'm doing what I'm doing isn't because someone's
Right.
forcing me to. I'm doing because at the end of the day, even though I want to like complain about it sometimes just because we've
Yeah.
had enough, it's like I'm doing it because I want to. And it's like I get excited about when I accomplish something. I'm like, oh, like we did this. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, if I can do that, I can definitely do like these things now. Like even with the
You'll
webinar,
be level.
yeah, like even with the webinar, like I got out of that and I'm like, okay, I was scared shitless there. And that was like, wait, it literally felt like a truck was going by and I almost got hit by it. And I like just like whoop, got out of the way like the last second. But guess what? Because that was so scary, the
Mm-hmm.
kind of attitude I have now is
It's not that
Cloud
bad.
World's not going to be bad now, because I
Right.
have more than 2.5 hours to like get this
Exactly.
thing. And like the webinar was successful, where it's like I watched, people can check it out. We'll put the link in the description. It's on one of
Mm-hmm.
Oracle's channels. It's like good thing I like got it together too, because it's like already up to like 450 views in like
It's
4 days.
crazy.
So, but part of the reason why I was like up to the wire is because I wanted to be as good as possible. But like because I did that, I'm like, okay, Cloud World's not going to be as bad, because that
You're
was more of an intense
preparing.
challenge. Yeah.
Right.
That was a lot of word vomit, but
And no, I think it is important to show people that life is just not, oh my God, I'm happy at my job all the time,
Mhm.
because overall, I feel like we are happy with our jobs, like at least me, I know you are too, like you're proud of everything you do. But there's times where things get hard, and I think it happens in any job, like whoever says that they've never worked like over 40 hours in 1 week, it's lying. I'm sorry, but it is lying, right?
There are two types of people in the world, and this is my hot take of the day. It's like you have your 40, like your 40 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
this isn't like a one's better than the other. It's like people have different
Yeah.
priorities, different points of their life, different goals, etc. As a
Mm-hmm.
disclaimer. But like you have the people who are like, okay, I think in terms of the clock in the day, and when it hits, I need to be here and do this thing at this certain time.
Mm-hmm.
And when it hits this time, I can turn my brain off. That's like not what we do. Like, and I feel like our version is more like we have to do these things. No one really cares how or when it gets done or like the time commitment. But like it's like a different type of game, which can get pretty intense.
Yeah, like for example, I have weeks where I have to work over 40 hours because I want to deliver, like, and I don't want to just deliver, I want to do it right, right? So, yeah, I'll put a little more pressure on myself, and then there's other weeks where I can just clock out with my 40 hours, and it's just the reality of things, and
Mhm.
I, I'm like, am I happy when I have to work long hours? No, I'm tired,
Yeah.
But at the end, that like reward of saying, "Wow, that looks good,"
There's like
Oh,
that deeper satisfaction where it's like sometimes I feel like sometimes it's not the case. We're like, no, that sucked. And like that, like it was terrible, period. But there are times, and I would say it's this more often than the other, where you're like,
mhm,
that sucked. But the satisfaction I had is like worth it.
right, exactly. That's the thing. So there's times where I like normally if I stay longer at work is because I'm like in the zone and I don't want anything to cut my zone and I'm getting somewhere,
Mhm.
So that's why I'm like, damn, at the end when I'm done, I'm like, wow, it sucks that I spent so much time on this, But when I'm done, I'm like, wow, like this was so rewarding. This was amazing. I learned something new. So, like, the same way as you felt when you did the webinar, it's like I unlocked a new level. Now I can do this with my eyes closed because probably I had to do it like 20,000 times because something went wrong, So, yeah.
No, but in speaking of like doing things with your eyes closed and and like getting to that level of prepared, I literally had to do that the other week where I went on a trip to Dallas to present to this like one customer
Mhm.
on stage. I still had like three content slides left, and my laptop battery just died at that point. And I like this was my first time presenting on stage, like in person. Actually, like ever at Oracle, actually, because we were like COVID babies starting out this company, so most of our stuff is Zoom. And like I don't think from what I remember, and I'm like I don't think I like missed a beat at all. I'm just like, well, this is in my I literally have these slides memorized. So it's like I can't tell you every single detail on it. But I'm like, here's the general gist. Here's where you can go find this diagram I was going to show you. And I was able to like keep it going. I'm like, oh, that's the reason why that went successfully is because like you're at a level of prepared where like chaos and the unknown can come in. You're like, no, like even though I wasn't thinking this would happen, I understand this at a level that it's like I can like go with the tide because there's gonna be unexpected things sometimes.
So, what I've learned this week and last week, I think, was I want to be able to present on graph and spatial with my eyes closed. So even
Mhm.
if I don't have a presentation, I'm planning on studying one presentation, so that I can just do it without even blinking. Because I see people like my manager or people in my team, and they can do a presentation like nothing, like it doesn't even face them. And then it's me, where if my manager were to tell me, hey, you need to present tomorrow, even though I've done so many videos and, I've read all of like our stuff multiple times before being published, right? I'm still like, oh my God, no, I really have to present, like prepare before I present. So that's my goal. And I think that's important, especially when you're starting your career, because for PMs, it is important to be a good presenter, and it is important to make it sound natural. Like I, for example, rely a lot on my notes right now when I present. I make my notes very good, right? I want them to be perfect so that when I'm presenting, even if I'm not reading them, because I kind of memorize them since I repeat it multiple times, I still think it's better to be natural, right? So that's one of my goals for the next couple of months, to not memorize, but feel comfortable with a spatial presentation and with a graph presentation, so that if one day someone comes to me and they're like, hey, we need someone to present this right now, I'm like, okay, I'm ready and feeling comfortable.
Is there anything, because you're kind of shifting this mindset away from, I'm thinking specifically just in terms of what I need to memorize in conjunction with like the slides or whatever material I have. Is there, it could be things, this could be something that you're planning on doing or something that you've already started implementing. Is there any, like, say, mindsets or like principles or rules that you're making for yourself in terms of how you're going to differ that preparation style between, like,
Yeah.
let's say, slide complementary understanding versus full eyes closed knowledge of the topic and presentation?
I think, okay, I don't know if I understood your question correctly, but I want to say that I will definitely have slides that no matter what we need to present, right? They're always there because you need that concept, right? To understand, for example, graphs, right? Then there's always different people watching your presentation, right? Like different personas or different industries, right? So I will definitely have to change a couple of things, but I do want to be comfortable with the introduction slides, right? Where this is the first time you're listening about our technology and we're just presenting it to you. So that's like my goal. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess like a more like, now that I have it formulated in my head, a more streamlined version of the question is like, is there anything that you're changing in how you prepare for presentations, either that you want, that you're going to start doing, that you've done already, to get to that like eyes closed level? Like, let's just like think of it in terms of how you've prepared for presentations up until this point versus now you have this goal of, I want to basically like know this on a level where I can quote unquote like do with my eyes closed. How do you differ in, say, getting ready for that type of like shift?
I feel like I haven't thought about that, but I do want to turn my notes into just bullet points where I'm just like, you know what, for this presentation, I have to highlight these things, for this specific customer or audience in general. So that would be my main goal, right? Just shifting from having a note, like literally a script, to just bullet points that I can change really quick. So that's kind of my goal. What do you think about that?
No, that's kind of like I would say in line with how I think, is when I started shifting towards that, let's make this natural, able to, I guess, be more flowy in terms of it. I was like thinking about how I used to do it versus now. I would say like what I've been doing lately that seems effective is I like to prepare a script that is more like every word is succinct, and like in the perfect situation, if I could get like everything just the way I want, here are all the exact words that I would use. Because like I like being very specific when I'm able to and my brain's not tired and I'm prepared with my wording. But as I get like closer to, say, the actual thing, I kind of go from like, here's the script, to like the bullet point mode, where I go, when I'm live and on stage, being natural
is important.
It there is more value in being like there's value in getting every word right. And this is like taking another conversation I was having yesterday. Getting every word right is kind of like playing an instrument where you're getting, there's like a level of like, what's the word, like just frequency and harmony when you hit all the notes at the right points.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that bit of like the scientific like breakdown of specific wording that is good and there is value there. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, if you're so worried about that, you could do it at the detriment of being natural. And it's better to say being able to like generate in live time, where if you get all the words exactly right, that's great. But if you can say dance around the topic, let's call it podcast style, where it's like we come in here knowing generally what we're going to say, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't know exactly what we're going to say. That's
Yeah.
like a skill in itself. And like I noticed doing the webinar and like doing the live presentation, the
Mm-hmm.
skills that were allowing me to keep my cool in those environments were things that I learned specifically from doing this podcast. Where
Mm-hmm.
like when I go on, like when I went on stage or like when I did the webinar, when I used to do presentations as a kid, I would have like be super focused on every single word where like I couldn't say anything off script because I was using all of my
Mm-hmm.
brain power to just keep that like active memory of like da 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 da. But now when I like go up, I kind of go up with like a blank slate brain where it's like subconsciously I've been getting the reps in and I'm trying to prepare myself to say everything exactly the way I want. But
Mm-hmm.
it's better for me to say like be able to go, here's the bullet point in my mind, dance around that topic and talk about it naturally than
Mm-hmm.
it is to like hyper obsess on your specific wording and then get thrown off beat when you
Someone
don't do
asks you a
everything
question
perfectly.
or
Yeah.
you mess up a word. Yeah, I totally understand what you're
Mhm.
saying. It is hard because when you mess up that wording, you lose all your flow. So you're like, oh, so it is important to be able to be natural. I feel like the main thing that I do want to have super, super in my head is the messaging, right? There's every solution has a messaging, and it is important to put it in your own words so that it is more natural for you to say it. But I feel like that's one thing that I want to work on. And then the rest, put it in my own style, you know?
Yeah. I feel like that specific word stuff is kind of, it reminded me of a conversation that we were having, like we've had before in different degrees, which is like the whole like we have to be specific talking about tech, but
Mm-hmm.
because we're so worried about not saying anything inaccurate, we're
Mm-hmm.
just, it's very easy for people in our like profession to just go like, here's all the information and like thank God everything is accurate. It's like, well, did you deliver it properly? And like
Right.
being able to get the messaging down, like that was like walking away from the webinar, something that I was like happy with was, although watching it back a couple times and seeing it's like, okay, I can be a bit more smooth and flowy with the delivery. That was just due to first time actually running through it live, like in front of a real audience, and also just due to like time constraints. Like, despite that, the structure there, I'm really happy and excited with, and the story and message that I'm telling, I think is like a really good one that I just need to polish at this point, leading up to Cloud World.
Yeah.
And my mom actually like texted me about it this morning, and she said something that like kind of stuck with me. Oh yeah, her message was, "I watched, listened to your webinar this morning. Awesome job. Loved your slides and creativity. It made it interesting for a non-tech person like me."
That's awesome.
Um, and putting aside that like this is my mom, it's like just play devil's advocate, she's gonna like hype me up no matter what. She did specifically mention like the fact that she specifically mentioned like a non-tech person like me.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that, at least for the way that I approach my tech career, has always been something that resonates me with me, because like kind of like the podcast, we create and work with things
Mm-hmm.
that reach such a wide array of people from such like different
Exactly.
backgrounds, mindsets, ideologies, values, etc. That one of our hardest challenges is being like, who do we resonate with and why? And there's something about like the fact that she used the word for a non-tech person like me that it made me kind of go into my brain. I'm like, well, I feel like there's such in our jobs this desire and insecurity where we're all trying to prove that we're tech people. And
Yeah.
it's like this big rat race where there's always going to be someone who understands things more technically than you. And there will be these like people who could like you could be like pretty confident, and like there are people who are so smart and know their shit that like the only thing keeping them from embarrassing you about your level of knowledge is just them being nice people.
Yep.
But like, so even though we have this desire to go like, oh, being a tech person, to tech people, we need to like reach the right like developers or this tech like stakeholder group. It's always about like getting to the tech people, communicating to the tech people. But I'm like, what's the value of the non-tech person? I'm like, I think that's actually like the non-tech people are actually the tech people that we need to reach out to.
Right.
Because you're not going to call yourself a tech person on a topic until you understand it. Like once you already understand the thing, you're the tech person. And it's like, that's great. It's like you can go like pat yourself on the back. I now know enough about this to feel confident. I can proudly say I'm a tech person. But those people don't need these presentations. They don't need us to like teach them about these topics because they already know it. Like our audience is the non-tech person, because the non-tech person is the person who's trying to learn how to be more technical. So like the way that like I phrase it, and we've mentioned this also, is like peanut butter pilling it. It's why we talk about like the technical side of our job, but this isn't just us going technical hardcore the whole time. Because after about like 5-10 minutes, everyone would glaze over, because no matter how interested you are in this topics, you can only go at such a high frequency for so long before you burn out your brain. So you need to make it fun. Like you need to wrap things in these stories. You need to be able to have people walking away going, you know what? I don't remember every single technical detail from what was just presented to me, because who does? This was the first, that's not how you learn. This was the first time you got exposed to information. You need reinforcements. But if you can like tell the story, do the messaging, like make a good peanut butter pill, they'll be put in the right place where they can walk away from it with the right associations in their brains and like symbolisms of like what this means and what it represents and like where to go from here. And like I think that's going to be my favorite presentation I give at Cloud World, because like I walked away from that, I'm like, this still needs a little bit more work, but I think there's like a real opportunity to kind of like tap into that intuition that I think I have. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that it's like when I was learning, I was the definition of a non-tech person. Like I was a finance background person going like, okay, I want a job at Oracle. How do I do that? Should probably learn some tech. Well, it's like the people who don't know it are the ones who want to learn.
Right.
And I feel like the more that I learn technically, the more I'm trying to like always make sure I don't forget about that beginner's mindset and go like, oh no, I only need to like present to people like this level or this level. It's like, no, it's like those kind of the people you're quote unquote trying to impress. That's a bit of a different game and thing than what you're trying to accomplish by teaching on a subject.
Yeah, I think it is it's very needed for us to have non-technical people. It is, because we do bring a totally different perspective. Of course, we need the technical people no matter what, right? But in a presentation, it is nice to plant a seed, right? And it's nice to have it so that anyone can understand. Yes, I mean, probably if you see me in a presentation, you're probably going to think, oh, this is not technically enough or whatever. But at the end of the day, I feel like technology exists because we're trying to solve problems, and those could be like human problems, those could be business problems. I don't know, but it is important for I feel like the people that are making those business decisions are not technical always, right? And
Most of the time, I would say they're not in general.
exactly.
That's not an absolute statement, but
Yeah, probably not, right?
or
And
here's a more accurate way of phrasing that. Even if you are a technical person who's on
mhm,
the management strategy decision making side,
mhm,
you don't have the bandwidth to understand and learn every single aspect and keep
mhm,
up with every single aspect of what you are responsible for. And you have to rely on the people who dedicate themselves to making sure that they are completely up to date on a topic, because there's more information of what we deal with than
mhm.
the human brain can contain. So you need to rely on that delegation.
Exactly. So I think it is important for everyone to understand. And I always appreciate even like a storytelling when you go back home and you're like, oh, I can link this to a regular life, story, and I can get the general understanding of it. I think that is so important and so impactful for anyone that's attending a presentation in general. And I ask a lot of questions, and I'm very scared of asking questions when I'm talking to developers because I'm like, oh my God, like the way I'm asking the question is like, does that thing do this? And why does this thing do that? Type of thing. Like it's so like non-technical, but I always apologize. I'm always like, hey, like I'm from looking at a non-technical background, perspective type of person, right? Why do we do this like this? Or why don't we do this a little more like that? Because I'm just not understanding what's the point of that. And then they give me an explanation. Most of the time, okay, I will understand it, but it takes me a very long time because they're so technical, and I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh. So like, I feel like I ask a lot of questions, but when I'm talking to developers, I'm very scared of asking questions because I'm like, wow, like I probably sound stupid.
No, the best moments are when you ask someone something that like you don't even understand what you're asking so much that
Yeah,
you break their brain. For like you end up just confusing them, and it takes them like a hot sec just to like recompose themselves. Like, do you actually mean this? And you're like, oh yeah, that one. And it's just like you just
you
sent
don't
them.
understand
You
how
just
many
like
times.
see in their eyes that you just like sent them down like a rabbit hole of like trying to like
Literally, like you don't know how
guiding them down
many
the wrong. Yeah.
times I've asked a question and they've answered me maybe something different. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna ask again because clearly I don't even know how to ask the question. But I feel like even the fact that we have the cloud now, that is a little more for non-technical. I feel like it's easier for non-technical people to get more comfortable with the cloud compared to on-prem. You can see that it is important to have non-technical people, because we are trying to make technology available for non-technical people. If you go in the on command line, you lost me. You lost me. And I am right now I'm trying to do some command line and I'm struggling, But in the cloud, everything is so much more human readable, you know.
Mhm.
So if you're non-technical and you want to get into IT, there is a place for you for sure. And there is value. And technical people also appreciate when you go back to them and you tell them, hey, why is this done like this? Can you explain it to me? They love explaining things, and that's like the best part of it. And I'm not going to lie, when I see people explaining super complex things to me, I'm like, wow, I want to get to that level.
It's inspiring. Like seeing,
Yeah.
like I get motivated by seeing people who know more than me. Where it's like you go through that, like, oh shoot, like that, like surprise, then like insecurity, then like that fire of like, oh, like I don't know as much as I think I know, but I want to be able to like know that.
Like every time I feel stupid about asking a question, I'm like, I'm not gonna be stupid anymore after this answer because I'm really gonna make sure that I understand what he's saying.
The tech industry will make your ego feel like a roller coaster, where it's just like just these ups and downs of like, I know nothing. I am like worthless. Why do people even pay me for anything? To like, no, I'm doing great. Like, I just killed this thing. We're doing, oh, and now we're back to like the self hatred.
No, literally, literally. But going back to like presentation and stuff, if someone just like bombards me with a lot of technical terminology and everything, I'm lost. And it is very heavy to listen to a very, very technical presentation. Like people that do very technical presentations and make those presentations engaging, they have an ability, to be honest, because that is really hard.
Yeah. And I feel like even to kind of like add another layer of clarification to this, to kind of use more specific wording versus like technical and non-technical,
Mhm.
like especially like what I've been talking about of the whole like gearing presentations towards quote unquote non-technical people. Like
Mhm.
I think a more specific word is less technical,
Mhm.
because I mean, there's space for your 101s, but
Mhm.
not every presentation needs to be, or will be a 101. Like,
Right.
but all presentations you do, you're trying to teach someone information that they
They don't
shouldn't
know.
know. They don't know already, because it's like, if they know it, why are you there wasting your time? I mean, yeah, reinforcement, but
Right.
you're hopefully supposed to be teaching them something they don't know. And it just comes down to like, there's something about the teaching method where when you're communicating at a level higher than a person's current understanding, that's how you get them to grow.
Mhm.
But you also can only go so much higher than them. And the way that you do messaging effectively, like, is everything in being able to like make sure those communication packets are properly like getting sent across. And
Right.
it's also like you mentioning the cloud thing, that was like a nice reminder to think about too, because I would say it's like only been recently where I actually feel more comfortable on the command line.
Mhm.
And it's like what you'd expect, like, oh, this is quicker, more efficient, more effective.
Mhm.
But with learning, I've like always said, I'm like, UI, at least for me and the way that my brain is wired,
Mhm.
having a user interface is a lot better for people starting out, especially those who aren't already like adapting to command line. Like when you're already like, let's just call it command line literate,
Mhm.
yeah, you'll learn other stuff from the command line at that point. But like there's levels and stages to this game. And I do think that having a good UI, like
Mhm.
cloud user interface type funnel for people to learn about a topic, it just makes it that much easier to like have people progress at a good pace leading up to that like command line type experience that you'll get to, which is great for the team that I'm on, because we have both SQL Developer, which is our
Yep.
user interface tool, and SQL CL, which is the command line tool. But yeah, like that's always something that's kind of interesting to think about, that like tiers to learning and where people are in different places of it.
Yep. Also, just a side note for I know in Oracle we do have like a course for Linux and command line. So I'm going to link that link basically in the video. But it goes through like 0 to 100, and I am planning on taking that because I really need it. But it's free and it's very useful, especially if you're planning on getting into IT and you don't know command line, just like me. So yeah, I will link that. But quick question. So what were the main differences between you presenting online and you presenting in person? Because I haven't presented in person. So I'm wondering, I'm curious.
Yeah, I got lucky because I made a guess about this while preparing, and I
Mhm.
turned out to be right. The biggest thing, I was patting myself on the back there. And I didn't mean that like that. I'm just
I want to know. I want to know though. What were you right on? Or what was your
so I
guess?
had an idea, and turns out I was right, and it went well. No, like I hate I hate that. But no, like to try to actually share it. Uh the thing I was most worried about was the fact that when we're giving presentations, usually over Zoom, most of the time we're sitting at our desk, and we have like, our environment's different. We have our desk space. We can say have stuff up on your other monitor that helps assist you during a presentation. This isn't
Mhm.
like a school. No one's be like, you're cheating on a test. You have certain things about your environments that's a pro and con. The
Mhm.
thing I was most worried about during this the live presentation was like the standing getting comfortable walking around, not just being like hiding behind the podium,
Mm,
and knowing what the heck to do with my hands and where to look. So
yeah.
when I was like, that was a Monday, I drove up to Dallas at like 4:30 in the morning,
Oh my God.
Monday morning.
How
It was
far is
supposed to
that?
be it was
Two and
supposed
a
to be
half
like a
hours?
3 hour drive that ended up adding an extra 45 minutes to it due to an accident once I hit Dallas. It was actually like a great drive for like the leaving Austin. There wasn't Austin traffic because it was too early. Just like driving in the countryside. Once I hit Dallas, just like 40 minutes on top of my thing, and I left like so much time. Um, but the weekend before that, preparing, I was making sure that I like cleared my desk space away from my office, and I was doing the presentation standing, like letting myself like walk around, get comfortable with my hands and like where I look and all that.
Mhm.
Uh and then basically like once I got there, I was good with that. So that was that was what I was worried about most that ended up being prepared for. I would say something that I learned from the presentation after being done, that like I need to prepare, not prepare more for in the yeah, like prepare more for in the future, but just kind of like in a learning experience way, is shifting your brain, especially from when you're giving a live presentation. At least the way that I perceive it is when I'm giving a presentation on stage, I'm very much in my own world outside of making sure like I look at the different areas of the audience. Like I'm not just focusing in one spot. I'm trying to tune out as much external stimulus as possible so
Mhm.
I can focus on like communicating the message I want and like having the presence I'm trying to give in that environment. When you go to the Q&A right after that, and you kind of get that like adrenaline dump of like, I was very amped up, I gave the presentation's done, your body's like woof, and then you start getting thrown questions. That's a very different brain mode to have to like quickly get to, because you're going from very internal world focused, now it's like, oh, I have to be super focused on the external world. What is this person saying? What are they trying to like ask? Is
Mhm.
what they're asking, is what the words they're saying even the thing that I actually think they're trying to ask about? And I think someone I think someone asked me like, the presentation I was giving was about SQL Liquibase, our database like object automation tool.
Mhm.
And I think the question was like along the lines of, if Liquibase runs an update on like a database object, like let's just say a table gets updated and columns get destroyed as process of it, like you're
Mhm.
updating a file that has that table but with less columns in it, what happens to the data in it? And like the answer is simple: column go bye-bye, data gets destroyed. But just because I was like still kind of in like
Your
conversion
presentation mode.
disoriented mode, I like overthought it so much where it's like I like literally turned it to the like into an existential question where I'm like, where does data go when it dies? Like heaven, hell, purgatory? Is there some like weird backup thing I'm not thinking about where like it gets put to this system? And Jeff was just like, the data gets destroyed. Like, so I'm like, it was as simple as like I thought,
Jumped
but
in.
it's like those little things where, given being in a comfortable and relaxed environment where you didn't just have to be on, you're like, no shit, I know this. But
Mhm.
just having to switch those brain modes so quickly, it was kind of funny because that was like a reminder. I'm like, oh, like this is a bit of a like a different mental monster where it's like, even though I know something, I have to be able to switch modes. I was talking to my mentor Ron yesterday about this. He's like, I've mentioned before, super impressive master principal enterprise architect at Oracle. And I'm like, how do you? And he's like, yeah, that's definitely a thing. I'm like, how do you like help with it? He's like, 3 really deep breaths just to like physically reset your body as much as you
Wow.
can, like between the presentation and the Q&A. So I'm going to try that at Cloud World. And I think only one of my presentations has a Q&A section. So that should make things a little bit easier. But that's kind of what I'm most worried about, is like, especially when you're done a presentation and that was like one of the things I also noticed about doing it in person. I'm like, it's weird that you all just don't disappear and like leave me alone once I'm done talking. I'm like, oh, I'm still like have to be on. I'm still in this environment.
Right.
Um,
And you have to walk off.
yeah, and then it's like you're chatting with the people and like you're like things are still the tape is still rolling a bit. So that was kind of funny because I'm like, okay, I just need to get more comfortable with like the switching brain modes to Q&A mode after, and like you can't stop that like endorphin dump. You just
Mm.
can like I guess get better at reacting to it. But I found that interesting.
I have so many questions because, okay, so how natural was it for you to be walking around and like your hands, were you stiff at the beginning? Like, I know you practiced it, but how, like, did that like really reflect when you were actually in the presentation or not?
Yeah, I would say I was happy. There were like two things that caused me to stay pretty anchored to the like stand in my laptop in general. The first is my clicker stopped working randomly and I went and checked. It was because I got the low battery notification on my laptop. And then the second time I got drawn back the laptop is why did my slides go blank? Oh, my battery just died.
Oh my
So
God.
I do feel like there were moments where as I was starting to get like more loose and comfortable
Mhm.
just like being on it, I kind of there were things I had to address that like tethered me back to just the podium section. Um the part of my brain that's like trying to improve, I wasn't the loosest presenter in the world. I wasn't like the best with my hands and stuff. But and this is where I have a hard time being able to like objectively judge myself because just the way I think in terms of it. Like I mostly noticed the things I wanted to get better at, but at least from what I could tell,
Mhm.
I think I did an okay job of
Right.
not being behind a podium. Like I want to get better at it. I'm forward focused on it, but I do think I did like an okay job of like pointing at the slides. Like if I'm talking about points, like being like the 1, 2, 3, like trying to use my hands more. And it was something that I did have to adjust to, but I do think given my background, it was like good first steps, I would probably
Yeah.
phrase it as like in the right direction.
What about making eye contact? Did you make eye contact with people or not really?
I did. Like that's something that I think I was decent about in college too during presentations. I was not a good presentation giver and hated it in college,
I
but
love you so much.
the whole like look at the crowd, scan the crowd, like make sure you're not just only focusing on one section. I did that pretty decently. People talk about making direct eye contact with specific people just to make them feel like you're talking to them.
Mhm.
I did good with the scanning part. I could be better about, say, getting those intimate moments and something that uh I think Ron told me this one again like 2 months ago. He's like, if you could tell that there are certain people who quote unquote like are checking out a bit, if
Mhm.
you make eye contact with them and like that's one of the people you target with like the eye contact, that will kind of like get them back into it because it's no longer and I noticed professors doing that in college too.
Mhm.
It's like it's no longer them going, I'm looking at a TV screen and I'm not like an active part of this. You remind the audience by the scanning, the looking at specific people that's like, no, you're part of this experience. You're not on TikTok right now, like kind of thing. Like this is a two-way street.
Yeah. What about, was it the first time you meeting Jeff in person or have you met him before?
Jeff wasn't there. It was my first time. I got to meet Michelle Malker though. She was there in person. It
Okay.
was Michelle and then I believe I know one of them was I think the other two guys there were like both salespeople. I know one of them was like definitely like a sales VP or something. I think the other one might have been around there too. Uh, those were the three Oracle people, I believe, who were there at the event. And there was a bunch of like DB, like database product managers from all over who were also uh like logged into the conversation on, like, it
Online.
wasn't Zoom, it was some other platform, like
Oh,
on like the video conferencing. So we had the people in the audience at the company. We had like the four of us on the Oracle side there in person. And then we had other people at the company from all over who were also listening in on the webcast. And then we had the Oracle people who weren't able to be there in person who were presenting over the webcast too.
right. So, you know how we started in COVID, right? So, for
Mhm.
example, me, I haven't met any of my coworkers, to be honest. How did you approach the saying hi to people? How do you meet people in person from
So,
work? Because I feel like I would be so awkward. Like, I would probably try to go for a hug, but then I'm like, that's not like, you know what I mean? Like, what is appropriate?
uh-huh.
You know?
No, yeah, I've been worried about that, especially because like I like being a hugger. So for
Yeah,
me, like I am not comfortable with handshakes. So I
right.
feel like I go for the handshake more
Mhm.
than like I need to because it's like safer.
Right.
Um, I by the time I arrived, this was like a multi-hour event, and I got there like 10 minutes late because there was like fifty minutes of traffic more than I was expecting. And that's like even on top of putting in traffic time. Um, I didn't present for a couple hours later. So like I came into the auditorium that we were in, and like everyone was already kind of situated. So I didn't really get the before experience. It was kind of funny though, because like the person from the company who was having the event, we were walking, like there was this really long hallway. Like it was like movie comically long hallways that we had to go down to get from the front door to where the auditorium was. And
Mhm.
like he was this like older dude, like let's call him like a parent age, like a dad who's, I don't know if he was like a dad or not, but like let's say like dad who has kids maybe that elementary to high school age type thing.
Mhm.
I think that's broad enough where I don't have to guess his age and potentially like go down that rabbit hole where you can still get a gist. Like there was a couple decades of like a difference in us. So I
Mhm.
mean, there was like it was just him like kind of walking me like where to spot, like being nice, especially because there's no way in hell else. I think from a security standpoint, I wasn't allowed to, and also from like a navigation standpoint, like there's no way I could have figured that out on my own. Um, it was like small talk, like it wasn't like I wasn't talking to you or anything where it's like we're best friends right off the bat, but
Yeah.
we both like made the effort. We were both just like, oh, like asking about this and this. And yeah, it's like we had a bit of like the generational gap. So it's not like we're gonna have all the same interests, but I thought it was a pleasant experience where she's like, oh, like got to meet a new person, got to learn a little bit more. After the presentation, I got to meet some of the people at the company too. Like there was a little bit of chatting with Michelle, and some of like the other Oracle people and that like company people in a circle. And then after that, this was like a 2 day event for Michelle, and there was like a downtime period where I think everyone kind of like went their separate ways for a little bit. But that was like when I left because I had to make the drive back to Austin, and I was there for day two. So it was interesting kind of getting back into that in-person socialization mode a little bit, but it wasn't like the most intense socialization. It's not like we all went out to dinner or something.
Right, right. Yeah. I feel like I'm just like, I mean, I'm not worried, but I'm like curious to see how I'm gonna react when I like
Mm-hmm.
meet my, my team in person one day, hopefully. Who knows? And like I just know I'm an awkward person, so I might go for a hug, but then I think I'm just gonna be conscious and I'm gonna be like, we're in a professional setting, like I'm not gonna go for a hug.
Yeah, I feel like no, I will probably go for a hug with Jeff. I don't. I'll probably go. I'll get to meet Chris with a C, my like teammate Chris at
Uh-huh.
Cloud World, and also my VP Chris with a K. Jeff won't be at the Cloud World. I
Oh,
feel like teammate Chris and Jeff, I'm at the point where I'm
you guys
probably
hug.
I'm gonna go for the hug whether they like it or not. I feel a little bit, I don't know, maybe Crystal McKay likes hugs if this gets back to him and he wants a hug and
Guys,
wants to give me
this is a
permission
heads up, okay?
yeah.
We'll
If he
go for
wants
the
to
hug.
extend the formal invitation for me to hug him at Cloud World, like I'll do it, but I'm not gonna go like hug my VP the first time I meet him.
Right.
But no, I feel like we're both kind of similar in that way, where it's like we like being informal and like authentic, but we're also scared where we don't want to we would rather be less risk averse until we get comfortable and like you know
100%.
what, I'd rather like not take the chance on something being too presumptuous.
Yeah.
But once we kind of get the feel for a person, because that's Montana and I have talked about this, and like just like close friends, I feel like the way that I approach the world is I kind of like evaluate people, and a lot of it comes down to getting to know them better and have more information. Where I'm like, this person can handle like this level of Zach. This
Yeah.
person like this
You're
one.
toning it down a little bit.
Yeah. And then there's some like very specific people where it's like you get the full unhinged Zach, and there's like three of you in the world. And I trust that you won't like report me to like a mental hospital or something.
No, I feel you. I think that's kind of how I am too. So, no, it's just weird that we have to think about these things, since we were like COVID corporate people,
That no, yeah, like, and what are your thoughts on that? Because I have wondered where at first part of me was wondering, I'm like, did I just get like really socially awkward during COVID?
Yeah.
And it's like the reason I'm overthinking about this is because it's like you don't get we came out in an environment where for like 2 years we did not get consistent in-person
Mhm.
socialization. But then I remind myself, I'm like, there's might be a little bit about like of that, but I've always kind of been a hermit who likes
Mhm.
to kind of like be polite, and
Yeah.
I've gotten more comfortable showing my like true, let's call it like quote unquote true self to the world, like since doing public things like in general. But I've always been, I would say my default has been like polite, like kind. I want like to communicate that's
Mhm.
like I genuinely just like want to be nice if you're nice,
Right.
but like kind of more reserved.
Hmm.
But the more that I think about it, I do think a lot of it is just we didn't have to worry about this stuff. Like at least for me, there's a COVID component, but at least in my journey, I think it's more like just getting used to being an adult and
Hmm.
just existing in the business world.
Yep.
Like that's why we're thinking about it's like, oh, it's not too weird. It's like this is kind of just part of being your 20s. Like you will be thinking about these things a lot because you're being confronted with stuff that you didn't have to react to in a way when
Yep.
you were younger, let's say college and earlier. Part of that is just because you weren't put in those situations. Part of it was like also like, oh, people expected like a kid or a teenager's level of response to that.
Hmm.
Now that I'm doing things and I have like real responsibility, I can't like I have to like grow up a little bit, I guess. And like
Yeah.
part of that process, you're trying to like figuring like you're trying to figure things out too. And like who am I gonna be in this world that I'm now emerging into?
Exactly. I feel like definitely COVID did change our experience a little bit, at least getting into Oracle, for example, because we were part of a cohort. Like the normal situation would have been for all of us to move to Austin, be there in our first day of work, and set the tone without having all of these maybe awkward situations now, because now we're meeting people one by one. We're not in a cohort anymore, and these are people that have already been in this corporate world, in this professional business world for a longer time than us.
Mm-hmm.
So we are like, at least me, well, like I did work in an office, but it was a way smaller office, right? So now it is totally different for me because I've never really met any of my coworkers in person. I've met Thea, right? But she's not my coworker anymore. And we gave a hug, like, we're girls. It was like informal, it's like a friend type of thing. So it wasn't as serious, right? But like meeting my manager or something like that, it is different than if we would have met during our cohort times because everyone, like, you kind of like get the, hey, everyone is actually shaking hands. So of course I'm not gonna be giving you a hug if everyone's shaking hands, you know? And you know what's funny? Like all of this conversation reminded me of when I came to the US. So in Spain, we give two kisses
Mhm.
when we say hi, right? And in here, people started hugging me. And I was like, that is so, like, so much, you know? Like, I'm like, I don't even know you and you're hugging me, you know? But then imagine that, like, for me, a hug was like so much, like so intimate, like you were so close to me, you
That
know?
was more intimate culturally for you than
Than,
kisses.
than giving a kiss.
I can't even like I can't even like do that. Like I know what you're talking about that like greeting like mama.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that to Montana without feeling awkward because it's just such like a not something that you do thing. Like
Yeah.
even your own girlfriend. It's just like it's not something that you're taught.
Yeah, that is weird, right?
Mhm.
Now I go back to Spain and I forget and I give people two kisses and a hug. Imagine
Mhm.
that, you know, two kisses and a hug, you know?
You're like, wow, like at least buy me dinner first. They're like,
Right, right. So it's like, it is so weird. And I don't know, like, that's why I feel like I'm like, damn, I have to make sure that I say hi the correct way, you know? Because I felt some type of way when someone gave me a hug at the beginning, you know?
I need someone to teach me how to like do a good handshake too. Like I feel like my handshake is passable,
You're
but
like,
I've never yeah, I'm not like doing like the limp like this isn't as bad as a lot of people, but it's I don't have a handshake game plan. Like
like,
I don't understand yeah, I don't understand giving a handshake like the way to the level that I should. And I'm always it's like it's also weird too because it's like I'm 6'5" and I don't know my own strength. So I feel like I'm always worried if I'm like not paying attention, I'm squeezing too hard, or if I'm too focused on it, I'm like too like wavy about it. Cause like I don't know the proper level. Can someone help me with that? Like I just need like a solid half hour of like handshake after handshake. And while we're there, if you know it, like if you could teach me the cool ones where we like lock our fingers and all that,
it's actually,
I need like I need a master class. Like someone give me a TED talk, but like an in-person coaching for it.
is that a thing at work too? Can you do like the, you
I
know?
can't do that stuff. It's like I was always bad about it. I played basketball growing up. So like I don't know. The environment with that was they liked the whole like hand
Yeah.
shit. I survived. Everyone knew I wasn't good at it. It just got left at that.
I'm done
White
with
boy can't
saying
jump,
the
whatever.
yeah, honestly, people in college, like teachers in college should teach you this, you know? Because it is important. Like you don't know how strong you have to be, you know? Like I don't know, it's important.
And someone tell me what Riz is while we're at it too. The kids are saying that these days. Apparently, like Riz is the new word. Is that true? I'm gonna Google this to make sure I'm not losing my mind.
Reasons?
Riz, like Rizz. Kids want to know if you've got the Riz and if things are cap or no cap. I feel like a boomer. Like I don't like I went through the couple years leading up to this where it's like, oh, I understand what's going on, but that's not who I am. I'm at the point where it's like I don't even know what you people are talking about, and I'm
Right.
26.
It's scary. That is actually scary when you realize you don't understand. Plus, it's already hard for me to understand English slang to now have to learn new slang.
Yeah, this I've had my whole life to like stay on top of this, and you fall behind. I don't think I have Riz. It's like
I don't think I have written. I'm done. You don't even know what Riz is. You don't have it.
I just did a quick Google search. Riz, yeah, Riz is a thing. I think it's like level of like being like cool, like your
Oh,
suaviness, like being
yeah.
able to be like nonchalantly like charismatic.
Well, yeah, I
I
don't think.
think I have my charisma, but I feel like my charisma is more like unhinged monkey with tambourines. Where it's like that's when I'm at my best. That doesn't sound very Riz like.
I don't think people would think that's Riz nowadays. I'm sorry, Zach.
I feel like my spirit animal is like Austin Powers. Like I just want to like run around and be wild.
I feel like we all do though, low key. We all do. We just don't say it. You said it. Good for you. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, is there anything else how long have we been going? Is there anything else we want to touch on?
I think no, I don't have anything else. But it was a good catch up,
I
honestly.
know.
I feel like I've
This
already learned a lot with like the in-person presentation. I'll definitely hit you up when I have that.
No, do it. Like that's something where I like bouncing stuff off of you too, because it gets me
Yeah.
thinking about it as well. I know it'll be exciting when we can finally because yeah, Nelly was on the Dallas, like she was presenting virtually for the Dallas customer event I was on. It'll be cool if they start sending us at some point. I know they're not doing crazy amount of travel. That was
Mhm.
more kind of like if you can drive, it'd be cool if you're there.
Right.
But if we could start like going places and us both presenting on it, because it seems like a lot of these like DB, like database presentations, we're
Hmm.
getting hit on the database tool side of our stuff and the analytics of you guys, and they tend to wrap those up into similar events.
Definitely. Yeah. Hopefully, if not, we just have to plan a trip or something.
Yeah. No, I definitely want to have you and your boyfriend come and like
Yeah.
spend like a weekend or a week with me in Montana, and we can show you around Austin. That'd be
Yeah.
really exciting.
Yeah, we need to plan something like that, or you guys come to Miami. Miami's fun.
No, I want to. I haven't done Miami. All I know about Miami is essentially Burn Notice. I enjoyed that show growing up.
Burnout, I've never heard of that, but
It's like a spy show. It was pretty cool.
okay.
It was like this dude was like a spy in Miami. That's that's
Well,
my 2 cents on that. Oh, I should probably plug my stuff too, because next time we do this podcast will be after Cloud World. So yeah, I'll be giving 3 presentations. I don't even need to pull it up, I know what it is. So there'll be 3 events. One's just a pure presentation, and then I'll be doing 2 workshops. The workshop is going to be, it's called Take Control of Your Database with Automated Schema Changes. That's my big, yeah, let me just pull up the calendar so I can see how long the times are for each of them actually. Because, yeah, and I can let everyone know what days they are as well. Okay, so Cloud World schedule. Okay, yeah, so this is my schedule. I'll be helping with some demo booths of different teams as well. So along with, I think we'll have a database tools booth too. So you'll see me around for that if you're at Cloud World.
mhm.
For the sessions I'll be presenting at on Wednesday, my first session is from 9:45 to 10:30 a.m. Unlock the power of command line database development with SQL CL. That's basically the polished version of that webinar that I gave last week. That's going to be just like your simple 45-minute, I give a presentation, Q&A afterwards. Really excited about that material. That should be pretty cool to finalize. Then the same day, Wednesday the 20th, I have deploy Oracle Apex apps in the time it takes to make your morning coffee. That's from 1:35 p.m. to 1:55 p.m. That's going to be my community theater session. What that is the way it's been described to me is like it's kind of like carnival barker style, where they're giving us the space and we're kind of having these like little mini bite-sized sections where it's like, oh, learn in 20 minutes how to do this Oracle tech thing, learn how to do this one. The one that I'll be showing for that is with SQL CL Liquibase. I'll be showing how like literally in minutes you can do a full stack development project deployment, which includes like using Liquibase to deploy to a new database from the files, an Apex application. Apex is our low code development platform for building mobile and web applications. Um, so this development project you'll be deploying super quickly is an Apex app, all of the database objects for it. So like your tables, procedures, constraints, all of the data for it. and then also the Oracle REST APIs. So your APIs to connect your data to your application. Yeah, 20-minute session. I'll be showing you how you can deploy super quickly all those components, and then all of it will come together with an application that uses all of those different aspects on it, just to show you like the power of development projects and just making that stuff super available and easy to use. And then my final session is Thursday the 21st. This is my big hands-on lab workshop. That's take control of your database with automated schema changes. Yeah, Thursday 21st, 12:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. That's going to be my big like overview to SQL CL Liquibase, talking about all the fundamental concepts, walking you through some like basic use cases. I have a nice little customer story scenario to wrap everything in. So 2 workshops, one's a big hour and a half. One's a little baby 20-minute one, and then a 45-minute talk.
Oh
And
my
then that
goodness.
should
You
be
have
my
so many
schedule.
sessions.
I know it's going to be interesting. I'm not scared right now, which is good. I've been scared for like the past 2 months. That's why I think I'm kind of like in the eye of the storm, where it's like I'm probably gonna get scared again before it. But I'm still riding off my like webinar high, where I'm like, if that didn't like kill me, I'm still
Fine.
standing.
Yeah.
So
No, you're gonna be fine.
should be fun. But yeah, I'm excited. Montana and I are taking a couple days after. She had hotel points, so we'll be staying in Vegas. So I'll get to experience Vegas for the first time too. I'll be like probably so tunnel vision during Cloud World that I don't know. Like I'm hoping I have fun with it, but I'm
Yeah,
kind of going at it with the approach of like we're here to do a mission type thing.
definitely, definitely. And don't forget to look into the Gold City passes for attractions.
Gold City passes.
Gold City, I think
What's
it's,
that?
you remember I sent you that for Vegas, that it's a pass where you pay, I don't know, it depends. Like you can do unlimited attractions, or you can do like a number of attractions, and it's cheaper because I mean, I love doing attractions, right? Like I went to the Marvel museum. I did the roller coaster in New York, the hotel. Um I don't know. There's a bunch of things that you can do. I don't remember anymore. Oh, I did the ferry wheel, I think it's called, in Link. And it's like it gets expensive if you're trying to do a lot of those things, but if you have the pass, you do save a lot of money.
Okay, yeah, that's
So
good to know. I'll have to check that out.
yeah, you should definitely do that. There's just so much to do in Vegas, and it's so overwhelming.
I'm
So
excited.
overwhelming. But yeah, it's really cool.
I used to be super into poker, but I'm not. I part of me is like, do I play in Vegas? I'm like, no, I have not. It's kind of like chess. I used to be really good, but I haven't practiced in the hot sec, so my skill level's gone down. And especially for Vegas, I'm like, I will not have any kind of edge. I'm
Yeah.
excited to play blackjack. I enjoy blackjack for
Oh, I
fun.
love blackjack. Yeah, I love it. We gave ourselves a cap. We were like, if we lose up to this money, we're like walking away because
Yeah,
it's so hard.
you have to go into the plan. Like I've gambled at a
Yeah.
couple like casinos before. If you're just like, I'm spending this money and I'm okay with that,
Yep.
that's how you keep it fun. But
Exactly.
do they like do you get free drinks when you're playing games in Vegas? Like if I'm at the blackjack table, is that like a thing?
I don't remember. I know that that is a thing in Colorado, but I
Uh-huh.
don't remember. I feel like we didn't. I think we already sat in the table with a drink, so I don't remember that happening, to be honest.
It honestly doesn't even make that much of a difference. I just like the idea of that aesthetic of me sitting at the blackjack table, like drinking my margarita, slowly
Right.
getting worse and worse.
That's when you don't follow your plan of I'm fine with losing this amount of money.
I feel like I'll be pretty good about that. I'll just be like, this is the cash I'm keeping on me today.
Yep,
It is what it is.
exactly. Do we know if there's going to be any like digital passes for Oracle Cloud World? I think,
I'm
right?
almost positive there's some kind of digital aspect to it because you made content for that, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I do have an on-demand session. It's called Making the Right Connections.
Okay.
And I really like that example. I think it makes it super simple to understand graphs. And we are introducing, 23C. So it is, I think it's a good, session, definitely. A good short session.
Yeah, that'd be cool to check out. Yeah, I don't know any
I don't know
specific
how
like
that works.
information on that, so I don't want to misspeak, but I'm sure people just like Google Oracle Cloud World digital content, they should be able to
Mhm.
find it, hopefully.
Right. I just wonder if it's like a different path where you don't have to go in person, but like you get
Yeah,
access to content. I don't know how that works, but I think we probably do have something like that. Like you don't like if you can't make it to Cloud World in person, at least you can get the digital pass.
I'd assume so.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
think we're good to
technically managing episode 14. It's good
have a
seeing
good
everyone.
one. Bye.
See you next time.